Okay, well I've gone and I've gone and bought 2 bags of garnet 3060 grit. I'm really not 100% sure what grit I was using the other day when I did the trial run. There was nothing really on the container that it was in to sort of say what it was in it. It was stuff that I'd had sitting on the shelf here for a couple of years. So I'll give it a go. Now the other thing, if you've seen the demo I did on the Karcher, which is in another video, I'm not going to put that up again on this video that I'm doing today, but I sort of suggested that perhaps it would be beneficial to give it a coat of paint stripper first. So I've done that. So let's give it a blast and see how we go. In the demo I previously recorded and uploaded onto YouTube, I did the driver's side inner guard. So now in this video I'm doing the passenger side inner guard. Now I'm leaving this video in normal speed so you can get an idea of how long it takes to blast using this wet blasting kit, just in case anyone is actually interested in using the same procedure on their vehicle. I have got somewhat better. I think the grit that I'm now using is much better. I've also worked out how to stand the bag of grit so that the grit continues to fall as the grit is used. It continues to fall and sit around the pickup, and yeah, that's working a lot better. I think also the fact that I did give this a light coat of paint stripper has just helped sort of loosen the material on the inner guard up. And this guard had not only paint, but it had quite a bit of body deadener on it, and so yeah, this has worked quite well. At this point I've just been letting the sand basically fall on the ground. It is rather thirsty on the sand, so I will have to look at a method of being able to catch the sand, and I do intend to, this is the area just out front of my shed, I do intend to concrete it in the very near future, and I don't know, maybe I need to make a little section specifically for where I will do sandblasting if I'm going to be doing this in the future, perhaps where I can have something by means that will let the water run off that sort of catch the sand. So And that's the passenger side all done, sandblasted, bit of rust treatment on it, and again I'll just wait till it's completely dried out and put a coat of vetch primer on it. Well, that's the driver's side blasted, just given a wire wheel and a little bit of the rust spots and a coat of rust treatment ready for an undercoat, but I might wait. It's a bit cool this afternoon in the shade, and I'll give it plenty of time for it to dry right out first. So now the inner guard looks really good after doing the wet blasting, taking it right back. It's now got a coat of etched primer on it. But what it did reveal is down here there's a patch that has been put in before. I knew it was there, but it had been covered up with body deadener. The whole inner guard here had a lot of that body deadener in it. It was probably 5-6 mil at least thick. That's why it was such hard going, but I'm glad I've spent the time now to clean it right up. But what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to cut this section out and weld a new piece in, because it's not a very tidy job that's been done. I'm sure I can make it look a lot better and a lot less obvious. So that's what I'm going to have a look at doing now. I've got myself a piece of steel that's got a bit of shape in it already, and yeah, it's just got a very gentle curve in it. So I'll just finish playing around with shaping this up and cutting that out. Okay, so as you can see, I've cut that horrible piece that was welded in there. I've removed it, and I've got a nice bit that I've shaped. It's sort of got a curve this way as well as a curve around that way. So I've used the English wheel and the shrinker stretcher, and I've got that nicely shaped up to go in there now. So that should weld in there. Maybe just a fine little bit of tapping with a hammer, but I think that'll be good. Working with this thin sheet metal requires some special skills. I must admit, since I first began this project, my skills at working with this thin sheet metal have greatly improved. Probably still room for a little bit more improvement. And the main thing is you've just got to be patient, and patience isn't really one of my great qualities. But when you're welding, move your weld from one spot to another, and then you can always use some compressed air to blow across the weld to keep it cool. I also think, because currently I'm using a MIG welder with 0.6 wire, I believe that, the MIGs leave a fairly hard weld behind that's quite hard to grind down. I believe that the TIG welder is a better weld. It leaves a softer weld that's more easy to grind down and to work with. And it also, I believe, you can control the heat of the weld much better. So I may have to look at getting a TIG welder in the future if I'm going to do more of these projects. Okay, so that's got that little patch that I made up welded in there. Looks far better than it did. Pretty much everything above the ground level on the outside is primed and ready to go now. Time to flip it over, so I'm going to have to just get my ear plugs out. Just going to have to finish making up the rotisserie that I started working on about 2 years ago, and hopefully get it flipped over and clean up underneath. It's probably the next big job. Well, hello everyone. Now today it's the last day of
the year of last day of 2024. Over last week and this week I'd planned to get a lot done on the car over the Christmas break. It's the only time when I don't have clients menacing me, and unfortunately it's half gone already, and I haven't actually done a thing on the car. So hopefully over the next few days I can get some stuff done. But what I'm going to start with today, if you've seen the first video that I recorded, which was pretty ordinary, in that one I was working on a rotisserie, which is these here, which I sort of didn't get around to finishing off. So I want to get in and finish those so I can get the car upside down and clean underneath, and prepare all the underneath. I suppose once I've done that I can tip it over and then just concentrate on the panel work and everything next, I suppose, and paint. So that'll be good. But the other thing what I want to do today is I want to lift the car up and get underneath and work out where the anti-tramp bars are positioned, and tack the mounts onto the chassis rails. Oh, listen to the birds there trying to compete with me. And also the mounting brackets that go onto the diff housing. I want to get those tacked in place so that then I'll get the diff out from under the car. And yeah, going to have to do quite a bit of modifying for the disc to the diff housing at some point in the near future. So yeah, that's where I'm at, what I'm going to be looking at today. So I'll try and get a little bit of film of that as I go through the day. I'm not sure whether I'm going to have to take a trip to pick up some steel. I'll have to see. I was trying to make these things out of steel that I've got laying around, but you know, I might have to go and buy some. The other thing, I might just do a bit of a look online and just see for the positioning of these. I think that I have looked in the past, and the centre of gravity is somewhere around this grill section. So going to have to work out the mounting, get it mounted onto the chassis, and be able to get it. I've got the threaded rod running that I can lift it up and down. You know, I wasn't sort of too concerned about just making up my own rotisserie, because I mean, all up the car when it's together is about 980 kgs without the engine, the gearbox, and pretty much all the running gear, with doors and bonnet off, no boot. You know, it's probably only a few hundred kg, so it's not really a very heavy car at all. You know, if it was something a bit more substantial, maybe I'd look at buying a proper rotisserie. But anyway. Okay, well, I've got the car jacked up and a couple of stands under it now. I've come under here. I've located the position just next to the front spring hanger, basically, where the anti-tramp mounting bracket goes on. But what I have found is the brackets that are going to go on the diff are going to sit pretty much exactly where these couple of brackets are, where it's had a rear stabiliser bar on this car. So I have read that apparently rear stabiliser bars actually don't really help the Ford Escorts to handle any better. So I'm just going to remove those couple of brackets off there so that the mounting will go on. I have noticed a few issues under the back here that are going to need to be addressed when I tip it over, but nothing that wasn't to be expected, because I knew like where the back of the wheel tubs mount up, there's big gaps and things, and there's been some repairs done that just aren't very good. And yeah, so I don't know if you can hear, it's actually raining heavy outside at the moment, and there's a bit of a thunderstorm passing over. There's some lightning and thunder out there. It was about this time last year that we got that mini tornado came through and pretty much destroyed the local community. So hopefully we won't get anything like that this year. Well, the day is almost done, and I've got those anti-tramp bars. I've got the mounting brackets on the chassis tacked in place. I'm not going to weld them right in till I can actually tip the car upside down. But what I have found, where I've got the bracket on top of the diff on the driver's side here. It's sort of mounted, looks quite in the right spot, sort of sitting straight up and down, but over on this side it's actually leaning forward quite a bit. So I got the tape measure out and ran a few measurements, and the diff housing on the passenger side here is actually sitting back about 10 or 15 mil as to the right hand side. So I've had a look. The bushes on the springs, the fronts looks like it might have some polyurethane. You can see the red bushes there, and the backs are sort of hanging, not really hanging very nicely. They're a little bit lopsided. I'm trying to see that. It's a bit close on one side, but anyway, the other thing is the springs. They look pretty old, so I'm thinking I'm just going to leave those things tacked, and I think I'll get probably new leaf springs and new bushes for everything, and wait until I sort of get all that together, and then re-look at welding those brackets on there. So the other thing that I did, I've started to sort of make some brackets to go on the back here. Well, I'm going to bring this video to a close here, and there's just a few things that I wanted to address that were in the video when I was underneath the car, but in particular to the tramp bars being fitted. Now, often when I come to record these closing things, I've got to think what I've already said, to try and make sure that I'm not repeating myself all the time, and actually making sure what I say meshes in with what was in the video. Problem is, when you've got to get old, your memory doesn't work so well anymore. So it actually reminds me, many years ago I had tyre and mechanical shops, and I had this one guy that worked for me. He was a compulsive liar, but not only was he a compulsive liar, he had no memory. And so he would tell a lie one week, and the next week the lie that he would tell would be completely contrary to the lie that he'd already told from the previous week. So I suppose the moral to the story is don't tell lies, and you don't have that problem if you've got no memory. So anyway, that's a bit aside to the point, but yeah, so when I was under the vehicle and fitting these tramp bars, there was a couple of problems. Firstly, this here is from the driver's side, and the mounting bracket where I wanted to put it onto the diff, it seemed to be sitting in a good position, but the one on this side was sitting forward, and that was because the axle, when I did a measure with a tape measure, it was about 10 or 15 mil further away on this side. I think it was back further by about 10 or 15 mil, and at the time I had a look and I thought that the front bushes were sitting crooked, and they probably were. Now, I've since done a bit of Google searching, and it says that the front bush for the front eye of the spring should be 41 mil, and I've measured these, and that's what they are. These bushes actually don't look like they really had that much use. They still look good, they still look in their perfect shape, but when I measured the eye in this spring, it's closer to 50 mil. So obviously there was a whole lot of movement in there, and that's one reason why it was sitting different on one side than the other. But I suspect that these leaf springs are not from a Ford Escort, they're from something else. I think this car was used as some sort of a dirt racer or scrub bash or something. So yeah, I don't know what they're out of, and like I say, I'm not going to work with trash that I don't know what it is. So I've been having a bit of a look at new leaf springs, but I'll come back to that. So the other thing that I found is when I was under the car that these, oh look out, I've just dropped that bush. These mounting brackets for the tramp bar are right in the exact spot where the mount was sitting for the rear stabiliser bar, and so I removed those because I have, heard from everything that I can gather that rear stabiliser bars tend not to be such a great thing on the back of the Escorts, and so I thought I'd remove them, but it sort of goes against the grain, because every car I've ever had that's had a bit of horsepower, the first thing I've always done is got good shock springs and a set of good stabiliser bars to make sure the car handles. And you know, I think back to the Mk2 Ford Escort, as far as I'm aware, did come standard with a rear stabiliser bar, and I know from back in like 1979, 1980 when I had my original one, the car handled excellent. And so yeah, it just sort of goes against the grain a bit, but as I say, from what I understand, the general consensus with the Ford Escort is to drop the rear stabiliser bar and perhaps use a slightly heavier spring rating. I have tried searching, I can't really find anything that says what the standard spring rating was. I'll continue to investigate that, but what I have found is that there is a single leaf rear spring available, 60mm wide, which I think is basically 10mm wider than the standard Escort spring, and it's rated 146 pound. And so I'm thinking that that's quite possibly the way that I will go. But you know, however, I have kept these, but because the other thing is I didn't realise with these tramp bars, they actually do a couple of different types. There is a straight one as well as the one that's got that kink in it. But on thinking about it and looking at it, I think that this one, the one that's got a bit of a bend in it, is the one to go for, because otherwise if it was straight it would be fouling, because down here is the, I hope you can see that, is the mounting for the shock absorber, which pretty much goes up there. So by this it clears that, so I think that that is the right one. You know, the other thing, I've seen some of the Mk2 Escorts, the rally cars, and that they have a stabiliser bar that actually is mounted underneath the diff housing. So you know, there's always ways that things can be done. The other thing I thought about was actually using a shock absorber that maybe has a spring on it as well. I've seen those, and you know, I'm not talking about the full-length suspension, but the other thing, you know, that also is a little bit, it goes against the grain, because I know in the old days people used to have the air suspension where they would have a shock absorber with an airbag in it, and I think a lot of times that was used where they'd be able to pump it up if they were towing a load. But those things, like putting a spring on your shock absorber, tend to move all the load from the springs to that little mounting point there on the bottom of your shock absorber, and also the pressure goes against where it mounts to the body of the car. The shock absorber mounts at the top. So yeah, that sort of goes against the grain a little bit for that reason. But anyway, I'm quite sure we can get all that sorted out. The other thing that I did want to mention is regarding the use of neoprene bushes. It seems that everyone goes with replacing everything with the neoprene. Now, like I say, back when I had my tyre and mechanical shop, you know, I did a few courses on suspension and stuff like that with the so-called experts back in those days, and they actually advised not to use the neoprene bushes in all of your for all your bushes, but to leave some in a rubber, because using all neoprene can actually in cases cause the car to skip, because they don't absorb quite as well as what the rubber will absorb the shocks and the impacts, and help the car to sit better in you know, those severe instances, and that's why you want good suspension for those severe type instances. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the content in this video, and I've got the next one that will be coming up, and I'll be doing finishing off building the rotisserie. We'll get the car upside down, finish cleaning up underneath, and etch prime the underneath. And yeah, so just if you've liked it, you know, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video. And obviously, if you've got any comments, anything to add, particularly if you're in the know, yeah, you know, I'm very grateful to date. Most of the comments I've been getting have been all fairly positive, and so that's good. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video.